So first of all, obviously, thank you very much for doing this. And I always like to begin by just asking, did you go to the movies as a kid? And if you did, were there any favorites? Or
Oh my goodness,
yeah.
yes. Yes, I think, like a lot of people in my generation, the first film I saw was probably Bambi, Wizard of Oz, Fantasia, and Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs.
All the Disney grades, yeah.
And that would have been around about 1950.
Sure.
And then I used to go to the movies, or we called it the pictures, every Saturday afternoon, the local. And I had a big thing about Esther Williams.
Yeah.
I wanted to be Esther Williams. And I'm not even a very good swimmer. But I used to love war movies, things like Witness for the Prosecution and anything with Elizabeth Taylor, Elephant Walk. And I was getting a bit older by then. I was getting like 9 or 10.
Sure.
Yeah, I was passionate about the movies. I used to just anything with Jimmy Stewart.
Yeah.
We still watch It's a Wonderful Life
course.
every Christmas.
Absolutely.
Along with Love Actually.
Yes, that's the new addition to the canon. But I love the Witness for the Prosecution with the sort of twist ending is perfect for this.
Yeah.
But well, do you remember? Was there a first of all? Do you remember when you first sort of tried acting, and then was there a turning point when you knew that you wanted to be or that you were an actress, or was it sort of an evolution?
I think my mother says I came out of the womb pretending to be someone else, and I think I was actively pretending to be other people from the age of about 3. I used to put on Italian and French accents and go to the shops and make up stories about myself, give myself a different identity. They must have been very tolerant, all those shopkeepers, because apparently they'd believe all sorts of stories about how I was an orphan, and I was doing that, before I'd even started school.
Wow.
And I used to do something very politically incorrect now, but I used to put on black makeup and pretend I was a black child.
Wow.
I was fascinated because I'd never met any black children in Australia, and the only experience was at Sunday school. There was a picture of Jesus with all the children from all over the world. Thank you, sir. And the kid that got to sit on his lap was a black kid, so I think maybe that's why I considered that must be, the status must be a bit higher.
Sure.
But I used to, my parents told a story about at the Christmas concert. I was a curly-headed, blue-eyed blonde child, and they wanted me to be the fairy princess, and I insisted on playing a black child, and they had to black my face up and put a black baby cap on me. I mean, it's shocking, isn't it?
Well, I guess times have changed a little bit, but
it was a compliment, it wasn't.
Sure, no. Now, when did it become something serious for you? Not that it wasn't serious then also, but I mean in terms of formally pursuing it.
My mother sent me to elocution lessons at 6 because she was worried about my vowel sounds, because she was English.
Yeah.
And the elocution teacher said to her, this child was, the phrase, born to act. So corny. And I remember my mother saying, oh, God, no. And then they started letting me go to drama classes, and that was very early. That was like 6. And I continued doing drama classes right through, and usually as extracurricular. They didn't have it in the schools then. And then when I was 15, I was still at school. I was quite good at school. There's ducks in my school. Do you say that in America?
What was the phrase?
Ducks. It's a Latin word meaning leader.
Oh.
It's like summa cum laude, I guess.
Sure. Wow.
But I read that they were going to do a beautiful professional production of Cinderella over the Christmas holidays, and they were looking for a small girl who could sing to play Cinderella, and my mother said, you might as well audition. I mean, you won't get the job, but you'll get experience with auditioning. So I auditioned and I got the job.
Very nice.
I continued school, and my father was a lawyer, my brother's a lawyer, and I was probably going to do law or social work, but I got a movie, or it was a television series shot on film, which in those days, in the 60s, was unusual. So
that was the beginning.
That was the beginning.
I think that it's probably, I'm curious if it's a bizarre experience to come here, because I know that in a way so much of what you've done has been on the stage, and so in Australia everybody, from what I gather, has seen you and admired, really knows all about you, and here they're just sort of discovering you. And so what's that like for you?
I'm a newcomer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. 48 years experience, and I'm a newcomer, and it's novel and it's amusing, and I love it, and it couldn't be a more appropriate place for it to happen, because I first came to New York. New York's been my favorite city all my life. I used to fantasize about living here. I first came here in 1972, almost 40 years ago, and I came here every year after that for 20 years. And the best I could do was I once did 30 shows in 3 weeks.
Oh my God.
Because if you go 7 nights and 3 matinees, you get to do 10 shows a week. So New York has been a huge love of mine. But I didn't dream that I'd be here one day, part of the industry. And last night I was at the New York Film Critics.
Congratulations.
It was just unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was unbelievable. It's at this stage of my life, I called it the twilight of my career yesterday. I think it would be more appropriate to say it's the bright sunshine of the mid-afternoon of my life, because so many good things are happening to me, and in what for me is a foreign country, although it's not really foreign. I always tell people that when people say, why are Australians so adept at playing Americans? I grew up watching the Mickey Mouse Club and Twilight Zone and Perry Mason, not to mention Disneyland. And my son grew up watching Sesame Street and The Simpsons, and so our culture, even though we have a strong culture of our own, is so imbued with American culture.
Amazing. Now, while you've predominantly, from what I've read, predominantly worked on stage, you've done and been very honored for your work in film. Is it something that you prefer one over the other, or you enjoy equally doing both, would you say?
I love both. I love both. 8 shows a week can be a bit taxing, especially if you're bearing the brunt of the work. If it's a huge starring role, or if it's recently I did a one-woman play where I played 7 characters and I didn't leave the stage, and that was very taxing just from a stamina point of view, and psychologically it was exhausting. But and it also taught me how much I love other actors. I got so lonely not having someone to play with, interact with. But it was a great experience. But more and more film and television. I mean, you work very hard in film. They say, hurry up and wait. Michael Caine says he gets paid for waiting around. He does the acting for nothing.
So, were you ever tempted to come here earlier on and try for Broadway or Hollywood, or was it just...
Well, I used to fantasize about it, but I didn't. It wasn't really something my generation did, and I think I was too shy and not confident enough. And while there was always work I wanted to do in Australia, I thought, well, why bother? Because I was getting leading roles in American plays and musicals in Australia that I know I wouldn't have got here. So it seemed a better idea to be playing fantastic characters I wanted to play. Where I could play them. The competition here there's only 20 million people in Australia.
Were there Australians that sort of made the crossover early on?
Not many. There were a few. Peter Finch. Rod Taylor.
Yeah.
Frank Thring.
I guess the trick is really hiding your accent, right? I mean, because
Well,
I wouldn't have guessed that Rod Taylor. I didn't even know that he was.
I bet you don't know Anthony LaPaglia is Australian.
I did not know that.
There
I
you
didn't know
go.
that. So it can happen.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, you hadn't done a movie for several years before this
That's
one.
right.
How did it come about? Where did you first hear from David?
Well, David sent me the script a long time before we started shooting, at least 5 years before.
Wow.
And he said, would you do this? I've written it with you in mind. And I thought it was a fantastic script, and I said I'd love to. And then I didn't hear anything for ages, and I thought,
It's gone.
yeah.
Yeah.
But being an independent film, it takes so long to get your money up, you know. And then I got a very sweet plaintive message from him saying, I hope you still want to do it, because I don't want to do it with anyone else but you.
Wow.
Which doesn't often get said to actors. Casting agents always say, oh, I'll find you someone better than that and cheaper.
So now he contacts you, he sends you the script, and as you've said in some of the other interviews that I've read, you were in a way used to playing the sweet, the nicer person, and all of a sudden he's asking you to, in a way, be the villain.
Oh, I was thrilled. I mean, it's always a challenge playing someone that's different from yourself. I mean, I can be a bitch too.
All of us, I guess.
And
Yeah.
I played my share of villains,
Yeah.
so no, I wasn't daunted by that. But it was exciting that I wasn't just playing another nice mum,
Yeah.
like in Father Knows Best or Leave It to Beaver.
Right. Now,
Showing my vast knowledge of the American
no,
culture.
you really, it's more than most Americans probably. So, with this movie, again, I've read that there was this unusually long rehearsal period, at least for a movie, and I wonder how valuable that was. What was gained from that period?
I think it made it a true ensemble piece. I think we all bonded very well, and we all became familiar with each other, which of course experienced actors can do straight away on a set without even knowing someone. But James, the young guy, he'd never done any film before. He's very intelligent, so he was pretty onto it straight away. But it was invaluable that time we spent. Ben was funny with him. He wouldn't talk to him. He kept up the menace off screen.
I was going to ask, because I've heard there was some acrimony during the making of it, but I didn't know if it was because people were staying in character or because there was some clashing or just...
Yeah. It was a bit of both.
Yeah.
I mean, not with me.
You were the peacekeeper, I've heard.
Everybody was good to me.
Yeah.
But what do you expect? You know, you've got a set sort of redolent with testosterone. You've got all those young alpha males striding about.
Right.
So
to be expected.
And especially when there were scenes that involved some conflict.
Yeah.
The conflict would carry over.
Sure. Did David share with you, or did you personally or independently concoct some sort of a backstory for Smurf?
He gave us backstories, but then he was very open about letting us adapt them to our own, what we fancied. And there were a few things that he had a couple of my sons having the same father. I said, oh no, they've all had different fathers.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
But the backstory is really only for the actors, unless there's any indication of it in the text or in the subtext. The audience doesn't really need to know about it, but it can be very helpful for us.
I figured, yeah. And this question, I know you have to sort of tread carefully with your answer, but I have to ask, who is, I believe the name is Kath Pettingill, and to what degree did she influence this movie and your characterization?
Well, she didn't influence my characterization one iota. We wanted to make a fictional piece, and we built my character up from the bottom.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not frightened of doing a biopic and doing an impersonation of someone. At first I wondered if that's what was on the cards, and I'm happy to attempt that kind of work too.
Sure.
We have a very successful television series in Australia called Underbelly, where they actually do portray real people and do it very well, I have to say. But David didn't want that. He wanted the freedom to add elements of his own, to tell the story his way, and make a lot of it fictional. So, for instance, there's a different number of sons. There are very different circumstances. It's totally
But she
fictional.
is
However, the Wall Street murders were two young rookie cops, and it happened in the 80s. I was living in Melbourne at the time, which is about 600 miles south of Sydney, and they were going through a period of the underworld having a terrible feud with the corrupt armed hold-up squad of cops. And there were a lot of reprisal killings, and one particular one that really captured everybody's attention and horror were these two young innocent cops who were hijacked and murdered by these two crims, who allegedly were the sons of Cat Crittendale, but they got off, as in our film.
So that's where people see the similarities.
Yes, but they were a very notorious family, and they were involved in crime for a couple of generations, and some of them had awful deaths, and it was a very... So that's... But we've got a few matriarchs,
sure,
particularly in Melbourne, and most people, your generation, don't know about her. They think that I'm being someone else, who I'm not being at all. But yeah, that's
and she's
who
still
that
alive,
is.
right?
She is still alive.
Has she seen the movie? Do we know?
I don't know.
You don't know?
I don't want to know. And I mean, if we had been trying to be her, I would have
Saw
met
her,
her
sure,
and wanted to and picked her brain and tried to pick up her mannerisms and done some serious research with her, but that wasn't the case.
Sure. This is again maybe a silly question, but I'm curious your interpretation. Why is it called Animal Kingdom?
Well, I guess it's the pecking order of a close-knit group of it's a kind of anthropological thing, isn't it? And the headline shifts, the head guy shifts with depending on where the power is.
Sure.
And the lioness got her power too.
Yes. And I guess in the way that we look at lion's eyes and things like that, I have to say that the thing that really stood out to me, among other things, but throughout the movie, was just your eyes are, and here as well, just very very amazing eyes. And I wonder, can you manipulate that when you're performing, or is it just you? I
don't think of it. No. I don't think of it, but so many people are mentioning it now. Maybe I should work on it.
Well, I think it's like you don't. I don't know if you were blinking very much or whatever, but it's very sort of hypnotic. You just stare at your eye. Yeah. Well, that's my take.
Maybe that's how I concentrate.
It could be. Well,
short attention span.
But in a way, it was perfect for this because it seems the intensity is underneath there. She's very sweet, but it does, I think, convey intensity. Maybe
she's very determined.
Yeah.
She's very focused.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention that. But and Smurf, where does that come from? The name.
Well, I think David says, it's a horrible name, isn't it? David says that's those cute little dolls.
Yes,
and because she seems so sweet and...
It's a disarming name, I guess. Yeah. What do you think, and again, this is sort of like asking about the backstory, you may not want to share this, but I'm curious, if it was up to, what do you think happens after the end credits?
I reckon...
Yep.
And here again, what I think isn't necessarily right. I think that it's up to everybody in the audience to make up their minds. That's what I love about the kind of films that don't explain everything. I think it's good for an audience to use their imagination. I think because I keep telling people, you know, if you want everything explained, watch a soap opera.
Right, right.
But I think he becomes top dog, the son, the grandson. Yeah. And I think she, being the pragmatist she is, she knows how to shift her allegiance and get behind him. At the very end, you see she's not quite embracing him. And she just better hope he doesn't find out that she ordered his death.
Yeah. Just wrapping up, I wanted to ask you, I imagine it's been like a blizzard of activity and just craziness in the last few months as people have discovered this movie and started to recognize and nominate and award your performance. So what has that been like for you to get that heads up that you've won the National Board of Review or the New York Film Critics or you've gotten the Golden Globe nomination? What's been your reaction to each of these things?
I think bewilderment is the word. I'm now signing my emails bewildered at King's Cross. It is bewilderment. I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. And I think I'd be less bewildered if it had happened 30 years ago, if I'd been lucky enough to get into a great film when I was in my 30s. But now that I'm 63, I'm over the moon and delighted, but I'm bewildered. It's come out of left field, so unexpected. And you know, everybody loves being told they've done a good job. It doesn't matter what field of endeavour you're in, whether you're a railway fettler.
Sure, you're right.
It's great to get approbation for something that you worked hard at. So I couldn't be happier. I'm walking around with a Cheshire cat grin on my face.
And are we going to get to see more of your movies here, or are you going to stay primarily in Australia?
Well, suddenly I've got people asking to represent me in LA, and I'm getting scripts sent to me by American directors. So who knows?
I think Quentin Tarantino was a fan of this movie, among others.
It was one of the top 3.
Yeah, so.
And you know, I can. In the past, just 4 years, I've been in Death of a Salesman, Steel Magnolias, Prisoner of Second Avenue. I can do an American accent, and I can do LA or New York. I'm not going to do it now.
You're paying attention, people. She can do it. So. Well, I hope they take advantage of that. That's great, and congratulations on all of it.
Thanks, God.
Thank you.